What is going on YouTube? It's your boy Thunderbite29 here, and yep, I am back today with another video. But this time, guys, we have now approached the end, which means we are now in the last few days of Chapter 2 altogether. But I feel like since I did a video like this earlier in Chapter 2 Season 8, and I didn't really give a fair review for Chapter 2 Season 8, but now as we have been through nearly the entire season, I feel like it would be more appropriate to make a video like this now, especially when we're only a few days away from the very end of Chapter 2. So let's look back through all these memories that we have seen and made throughout the matter of 2 years. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? So where will we start? Let's start with Chapter 2, Season 1. I'm going to put this in the C tier. If the season wasn't as long as it was that everyone knows that this was the longest season in Fortnite history. And if that was not the case, if it wasn't so long, and Epic Games wasn't so silent throughout that entire time, I'd put it in the B tier, but I think it's fair to put it in the C tier because it had its ups and it had its downs. Like, it was a great season, and it had a lot of hype and excitement at the start, but then after a few weeks, it got boring. But I did like it, but I didn't like the fact that it was so long, and there was no excuse for making a season that long without any explanation. So now, Chapter 2, Season 2, I'm going to put that in the A tier, and usually I'd put the best season in the S tier, but I think I'm going to put it in the A tier. It was a great season. I loved the storyline, I loved the theme of it, and it actually made sense. But the thing I didn't like was the introduction of bots and AIs, and putting all the best weapons in certain locations, and everyone knew where to land to get them, and everyone would fight tooth to nail every single game for the best weapons, because if everyone knew where the best weapons were, and it was not going to change, they're all going to land there and fight tooth to nail for it, and that's why 75% of the lobby would die within, like, the first 3 or 4 minutes of the game. Like, it was a really great season, but it just had a few things I didn't like, but this was honestly the best season in all of Chapter 2. Chapter 2, Season 3, I'm going to put that in the back of the C tier. I know it sounds rude that I'm kind of crapping on this season, actually. But I've crapped on this season a lot, but I think it's fair to put in the C tier. It had its good moments, and it had its down moments. Like, the map was underwater at the beginning, which was really, really boring. They replaced one of the shotguns with the charge, which I made a lot of videos talking about why the charge was one of the worst shotguns in the entire game because of its slow fire rate. And Black Lives Matter being used as an excuse to delay the season's release and to delay the Cars update. Which, if you are a representative for a video game company, you should be putting your game first instead of promoting political agendas. Which is what they should have did there, but they didn't. But I did like the Discovery Channel Shark Week event because there were sharks in the map. I do give them that. It was good, and it does fit the storyline. But overall, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect, or it wasn't good either. So, Chapter 2, Season 4, going in the F tier, you pretty much know the drill. You know I don't really like an entire crossover season, because especially if you're making a season about Fortnite, but then you have to make a battle pass that's all freaking Marvel. Like, I don't hate Marvel, but it didn't belong in this game. You should at least just sold it in the item shop instead of putting in a freaking battle pass or making a whole theme of it. Like, that's really embarrassing. But I did like the end event, like the finale event against Galactus. I did like that, though. But I didn't like the special ability weapons being put all over the map because, like, you go on a massive killing spree game, and you're doing super duper well, and then at the very last circle, you get killed by one of the boss weapons, which is extremely frustrating and annoying as hell. And I've dealt with that many times, and a lot of my audience did too. And that's the reason why a lot of people agreed with me in my Chapter 2 Season 4 rant, which is one of my very first few Fortnite rants I've ever made on this channel. But it's definitely not the worst season of all time. We're going to get to that in a minute. Chapter 2 Season 5, I'm going to put that at the top of the C tier. It wasn't that bad of a season, though. I do give it that. It's not, actually, I'm going to put it in the B tier. Because it was a great season, though. I will admit. It had a good map, even though it's kind of like Land of the Lost. And I did kind of bash the Battle Pass, but at least the Battle Pass wasn't as bad as the 3 that would come after this. Like, the map was great, except the desert part was nice, but it was kind of annoying because people just camped in the sand. I did make a lot of great memories with my audience, though, during that time. I didn't like the bots and AIs, though, but they weren't super duper annoying as they were within the 3 seasons that would come after that. Actually, 2, because bots aren't so annoying as they are in Chapter 2, Season 8, but let's get to that in a second. But wasn't bad of a season, but it wasn't perfect. But the collabs were really annoying. If they didn't have like 20 collabs, it probably would go higher. Like, if they didn't have collabs in the Battle Pass, but they didn't have like 20 of them throughout the season, or if they didn't have bots and AIs, it'd definitely go in the back of the A tier. But I think it's fair to put it in the B tier. But the season that comes after that, Chapter 2, Season 6, freaking awful. I'm putting that in the back of the F tier. It just wasn't that fun. It was not that enjoyable whatsoever. I couldn't really enjoy any bit of it. I mean, I didn't like the fact it was probably one of Epic Games' first amount of laziness that I had seen throughout Chapter 2. Like, I'm going to show you an image here of the comparison of Chapter 2 Season 5 to Chapter 2 Season 6. You notice there's not really any change-ups, really. Except they just put orange crap all over the map. The middle area was the only part that changed in this map. That was it. Nothing else really. Well, maybe the weaponry did, but still. It was just lazy work, and I didn't like the theme of it. The theme was boring, and it had no sniper rifles, which means a lot of people would snipe, and a lot of people got enjoyment out of it. And it's supposed to, like, surprise you, jump scare you and stuff, but you didn't really have that, and the weapon accuracy were terrible. I hate the makeshift primal weapons. They were terrible as well. And adding a new mechanic, which is crafting weapons, kind of like Minecraft. But still. But now let's get to Chapter 2, Season 7. I would have definitely put it in the back of the A tier if it didn't go so downhill like it did in like the middle to the end. So I'm gonna put that in the back of the C tier. It wasn't that fun, I will have to say. Actually, no, I'm going to put the top of the D tier, actually, because it just wasn't that enjoyable. Like, it was really great at the start, it was, until they started releasing, like, 50 crossovers. Like, there were so many more crossovers than there were in Chapter 2, Season 5. There were so many more. There was, like, 30 of them. And, oh, yeah, another thing to mention about the bots and AIs in Chapter 2, Season 6, they're all like Terminators that wouldn't frickin' die. They were like Terminators. And it took you like an entire clip to frickin' put them down. It was frickin' annoying. Of course, the crossovers here were frickin' annoying in this season. Even though it was annoying, though, getting sucked into an alien spaceship, though. You know what? Screw that. Why do I keep mixing things up? I'm actually going to put it in the back of the C tier. It did have a good ending event. I do give it that. But in the reintroducing of Kevin the Cube, I do give it that as well. I kind of think I've been a little too unfair with Season 7. But overall, it wasn't too bad of a season until, like, the middle and the end. Where they did all those crossovers and all them terrible updates, but the updates weren't too terrible. They're not as bad as they would be in Chapter 2, Season 8. Which I'm going to talk about right now. Originally, I had this in the F tier, but I'm actually going to put it in the D tier, actually. I will admit, though, it did have a good Halloween event. It had a good Fortnite Nightmares, which is definitely better than Overwatch's Halloween event. I do give it that. But I didn't like the fact that they started releasing more and more crossovers, more unnecessary crossovers, and what else was there? Oh, yes! And I never made a video on this, which I regret, was talking about the mechs and the mechs, or aka the brutes, which was one of the most annoying vehicles that were added in Chapter 1 Season X that a lot of people were frustrated with. Epic Games should have learned their lesson from when they added the mechs and the brutes from Season X and all the backlash it got. I mean, but back then, they actually listened and they took them out 3 weeks after they were put in the game. But was it Epic Games' fault for the mechs being so annoying and frustrating this season? Was it entirely Epic Games' fault? Not 100%. Because another 50% of that blame goes to the player base, to the people who voted for the combat shotgun. I don't know who the hell could be stupid enough to vote for the combat shotgun instead of the boogie bomb. If you guys have known, the boogie bomb is supposed to stun you or throw you out of a vehicle, which was one of the only things you could have used to counter the mechs. But a lot of people were like, oh, put in the combat shotgun anyway. And the combat shotgun was so much more underpowered than it was back then. Like, I complained about it being super overpowered and like a long-range gun, kinda, like a rifle in a way. But they made it so underpowered, though, which didn't really like either. I mean, but overall, it did have a good Halloween event, which is the reason why I kind of moved it up a little bit. So I do give it that. And to the fact that we are now to the very end of Chapter 2. But overall, what do I think of Chapter 2? I loved it, but at the same time, I hated it. I made a lot of great memories, and I made a lot of bad memories at the same time. Like, without Chapter 2, I would have never had a YouTube career. I would have never met so many good fans over the last, like, 8 months or so. I do admit, though, I made a lot of great memories, even though I didn't really like Chapter 2 so much. But it's a little bit sad, too, that we are now going into a new chapter. But we do not know if it's going to be better or if it's going to be worse. We will find out on December 7th. And this is probably going to be the last time I'm ever going to talk about Chapter 2 altogether. This is the last video I'm ever going to talk about it, because at least until the event that ends it all. But overall, guys, what did you think of Chapter 2? Tell me in the comments. Tell me your stories. I would love to hear them. Like this video and subscribe if you want to see more content. And thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all for the great support during Chapter 2. Thank you for all the love and support that you gave me throughout these videos over the year, like over the last 2 years. And I appreciate it a lot. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And until the very last day of Chapter 2, I will see you all at the end event. And until then, I'll see you all next time. Thank you all so much. And this is Thunderbite29, signing off.